something comes up about the Improve Act in Williamson County, I'll leave it.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the Public Affairs Roundtable. The show is produced each month by our local chamber, affectionately known as Williamson, Inc. And we would like to welcome you all here and look forward to having a good discussion. We've got, again, our legislative delegation from Williamson County with us this morning, and now that the session has wrapped up, we're going to try to capture everything we haven't talked about so far that came out of the session. With us we have our Senator Jack Johnson representing the 23rd District. We've got Representative Charles Sargent from the 61st District State House, Glenn Cassida from the 63rd District, and Sam Whitson from the 65th District. We're glad to have you all with us this morning, gentlemen, on a holiday weekend. So we appreciate your being able to be with us. Trying to capture as much as we can in just a couple of minutes. If each of you would tell us what you think were the top three accomplishments of the legislature this session, and I don't know how you, all three of you, or all four of you, deal with the Improve Act, but carve it up any way you want to, Jack, if you would, and start off and just give us 2 or 3 minutes of what you think were the best things of the legislature, or maybe the worst.
Well, okay, probably the most important thing we did is adjourn and get done. And but you know, knowing that you were going to ask that question 30 seconds ago, I had a chance to do a little bit of brainstorming about it. Obviously, the budget, the Improve Act, those are huge issues. We could all talk about those. I'll drill down onto some things that I think were very important to Williamson County and to our cities, our municipalities in my Senate district, the 23rd Senate District. I think the defeat, or at least the deferment of the Design Elements Bill, which would have been catastrophic for the city of Franklin, a bill that would have come in and limited cities' abilities to control what happens in your neighborhood, maybe right next door to your house. I think was a bad bill, and that was deferred. It wasn't defeated, but it was deferred until next year so that the stakeholders, I think, that care about that legislation can get together and talk about it. That was something that was important. Along a similar line was the de-annexation legislation, which did pass, which was very important to some of our colleagues in various parts of the state in order to have a mechanism for de-annexation, but at the same time we wanted to be able to protect the integrity of cities and neighborhoods that don't want to be annexed or don't want to leave a municipality. And one thing that's always a perennial issue that comes up in my committee, the Commerce and Labor Committee, every year are mandate bills. And this was a very important year to make sure that insurance mandate bills, these would be bills that would require insurance companies to cover various things, various processes, or various services, medical services. And all of those were defeated this year. And I think in light of what's going on in Washington with the conversations about repeal and replacement of Obamacare, it would have been a very bad year to be piling on things that would have driven up the cost of insurance. And those were defeated. So that's really getting into the weeds, but I think that's an important reflection. There's really usually about 2 or 3 or 4 initiatives every year that seem to suck up all the oxygen and seem to be all everybody ever talks about, when really there are hundreds of very important pieces of legislation that you may not know anything about, but could be very impactful to you or your community that we deal with up there. And I'm grateful to our partners in county government and city government. We've got great working relationships there to make sure that those are dealt with in the best manner possible.
Exactly what I was hoping we'd get into. Charles, what do you think were the top 3 accomplishments?
Getting the budget passed. Getting the budget passed.
All 3?
3 times over. No, it was an interesting year. But when you look at the state issues or the overall picture, without, we can get into some of the things that were very good to Williamson County, Franklin, Brentwood. But the Improve Act was one of the bigger things. Took about 6 weeks because nothing could be done on the budget until that Improved Act was either passed or failed. so we knew exactly what we were going to do, in the budget and how the budget was going to be balanced out. As you know, it passed 60 to 30 or something like, so it had a good support from most of the House members as far as that's concerned. But when you look even at the Improve Act, you have to look at the inside of the Improve Act. And one of the things, everyone wanted to focus on raising the gasoline tax. But at the same time, we lowered the sales tax on food 1%. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest things I think we actually did was our F&E tax. A lot of companies manufacturing plants have not been locating here in Tennessee because of our F&E tax. We were able to lower that from 6.5% down to 6%. And people say, well, all you're doing is helping big business.
Can you give us a specific example of what that tax is to some company or something? Because I never have quite understood exactly what that was.
There's two portions of it. There's the franchise and then there's their excise tax. On manufacturing plants, they get hit very heavily because of the value of the plant itself. So you take a General Motors, Spring Hill, Volkswagen, Nissan. Yeah. Well, Nissan corporate headquarters it gets taxed, but yet the manufacturing plant on there really gets hit because of the value of the plant. Okay. So you got 2 or 3 different evaluations on that, how it works. So this was a major thing for all of Tennessee. As soon as we were able to pass that, we had lost, in the last year, I'm getting into the details, we had lost 4 manufacturing plants, 2 to Georgia, 1 to the Carolinas, and 1 out west. As soon as we passed that, a company announced the day after, in Ray County, a tire manufacturing company is coming to Ray County, about 400 jobs. So these are major things when you look at, no, a manufacturing plant is not going to come to, say, Williamson County. Right. But because of Nissan manufacturing plants throughout the state, Nissan corporate headquarters, 10, 15 years later, ends up in Williamson County. Right. So when you look at the overall picture, that is very beneficial. Okay. And I think most of us up there have as our revenues are going up, we want to lower taxes and make Tennessee a better state for everybody. Yeah. A family of 4, a family of 5 with children, their food bill is going to be less than what the gasoline bill goes up. Now, Nancy and I, no, we don't buy a lot of food and we eat out a lot. So, so yes, it may cost me a little bit more, but a normal family of 2 or 3 children, they're going to pay less on their taxes at the end of the year when you look at it. Right. And, I can prove those numbers. People don't want to listen to that. So, those are some of the major things I'm looking at. Okay. As our revenues increase, we need to constantly, if we have good years, we need to constantly decrease some of our taxes. Yeah. Plus the fact, 2 years in a row now, if you can imagine, the state of Tennessee has not issued a bond. Normally we issue for higher education, for different capital outlay projects, we normally issue about $250 million a year bonds. And last year we did not issue one, and this year we are not issuing one. Well, when you look at it, let's say that's $500 million worth of bonds we did not issue, we paid cash for. That saves us $50 million a year in expenses because we don't have the bond indebtedness. So we can do, so I know I get too much in the weeds when it comes to financial stuff, but this is what,
I didn't say that.
This is what it's all about. How, all of a sudden we don't have a $50 million bond payment. Yeah. So we can do other things with that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll stop there.
Mr. Castor's turn.
Well, we know Charles is serious because he had a paper clip at the end of his index finger and he was pointing, so he meant business on that last. In addition to the Improve Act and the budget, Tennessee, we, the legislature and the governor, built upon our current success. Right now, we live in a state where you are personally the lowest taxed in the nation. You're least in debt, number 2 or 3 in job creation, number 1 in wealth creation. And so what we did this year via the passage of the internet broadband bill to help bring more internet to the rural parts of the state, that will increase even more business and even more individual opportunity at being successful. In addition to that, we passed a bill that allows all Tennesseans to go to a 2-year school for free without touching the general fund money. We took lottery money. The little chink in our armor that we have in Tennessee is we don't have a big supply of middle management. The one thing we hear from our friends that we recruit to come to Tennessee corporate headquarters is our workforce is good, our work ethic is good, but we just don't have middle management pool deep. And so college-educated people is what industry is looking for when they come to Tennessee, and I think that what we passed this year will attain that. And if I could just, the third thing, you asked for three, if I could, the one thing that I passed this year that just goes a long way, that's kind of a sleeping giant, but it's legislation related to something called captive insurance. Captive insurance is where large entities self-insure themselves. And it brings in hundreds of millions of dollars of capital into the state because you, as a corporation, as a Nissan, et cetera, you got to keep this in reserve. And so they will self-insure, but to do that, to self-insure in Tennessee or any other state, you got to bring a large amount of capital in. You park it in our banks, and it goes to work building more jobs and more things. And so Tennessee has gone from basically non-competitive to probably the number 1 or number 2, maybe number 3 state in the nation on captive insurance and companies wanting to bring their capital into Tennessee because of the positive benefits we give. And so those are 3 things that we're building upon our success, and this is why you live in the best state in the union.
All right. Thank you, sir. Sam Whitson.
Well, it's hard to follow. They covered a lot of the success we had this past year. One thing I enjoyed and I feel some sense of accomplishment is being part of the Transportation Sub and Transportation Full Committee, that we worked very hard to get the IMPROVE Act out and all the benefits that Senator Johnson and Charles and Glenn talked about taxes, low debt, sustainable road funding, and the F&E. I mean, that's just really going to be important for years coming, for the future, for our state and for our citizens, and particularly on the lower taxes that this for food, but also the F&E. That gets lost in a lot of the conversation about the IMPROVE Act, but that is going to be so important for the future of our state. The other thing I enjoyed during this period has been working with our local officials, city, county, and school officials on legislation and making sure that the impact was always positive for our local governments and our schools. And I had 3 bills that I'm very proud of that passed. The police body camera bill, the first statewide police body camera bill that we've ever had in the state. Worked closely with the city of Spring Hill, and this will have an impact all the way across the state as when cities and counties are negotiating with companies to come to their location, that information can be held from public record until the contract is ready to sign and put on public notice. And I worked hard with the open records officials across the state to make sure that complied with the current law and such. So that was, I think, a good one. And also the Suicide Prevention Training Act that will go into effect in a year or so, and that will help make sure counselors are trained to identify those who may attempt or commit suicide and protect them and their families. So that I felt really good about that one. And again, these gentlemen helped me out a lot during my first year, and I really appreciate that publicly. I mean, they've been great advisors and mentors, and I just and I tell people, when things come up in Williamson County, we're very fortunate to have the leadership on the Senate side with Senator Johnson, but to have the majority leader and the finance chairman, that makes a big difference across our state. And I'm just proud to be part of this team.
Right.
Dave, let me chime in, too. I know Jack and Charles, as they should, get a lot of accolades for what they do as chairmen, but let me say, Sam jumped in there and was a real player, I mean a player this year, not just some freshman. And that body camera bill, oh my goodness, Sam, there's a special place in heaven. You've earned the place in heaven on that body camera bill. But I just want to brag on him. What an excellent job he has done for our county, and we are proud to have him on the team. He carries his weight, trust me.
Right. That's we're proud of all of you, and just glad you're stepping up and swinging, Sam, so just keep doing it. The, of course, the road funding, I think, was top of most of our minds that get trapped in this traffic around here from time to time, and Mac Hatcher was the poster child of that bill as far as Williamson County is concerned. But can one of you, or all of you, if you want to pitch in, tell us a little bit more specifically how that's going to affect Williamson County and when, and because you know, I invited John Schroer here last month, and you know, didn't really learn anything from John specifically. So.
Well, I think you'll see Mac Hatcher go out for bids in November, December.
Okay.
I think it will be an immediate situation. It's not going to be put off for time. Like I said, as you know, Franklin Road from Concord down to Moores Lane is going to be started probably in the next 30 days. And that's going to be widening that to 5 lanes all the way down to Moores Lane, a little bit past Moores Lane.
Okay.
You know, then we have 96 out there on going from Arno Road down to Wilson Pike. Is it Wilson Pike?
Yeah, Wilson Pike.
So you're going to see some immediate things that are going to happen right now within the next 60 days for the next 18 months. You're going to see a lot of road projects being done.
Good.
Here in Williamson County. And those are the main ones, but there are several others.
Right. Now, Jack, the portion of Mac Hatcher that's nearest and dearest to our hearts now, any conversations about when that might get 4-laned around the southeast side of town?
I got John Shore's cell number. If you want to give him a call, maybe you can get some more information. Now, let's talk a little bit about how
Put
those...
them on the speakerphone now, if you like.
Call him up. Now, let's talk a little bit about how those road projects are selected and decided. And when we were having the conversation about the Improve Act, we talked often about the number of projects in Williamson County that were on the backlog list. And I say Williamson County because there are projects all over. There are important projects down in Spring Hill, over in Nolensville. Yeah. I mean, Fairview, Highway 100. There are badly needed projects on the list. So TDOT issues a 3-year plan, and that's all it is. It's a plan, but it's some kind of guidance to let people know the projects that are the highest priority with TDOT. Those projects can change somewhat,
right.
But we got some feedback. I know I did when we announced about Mac Hatcher. A lot of people were like, well, hey, what about my project over in this part of the county and in this part of the county? So TDOT has a very thorough mechanism in terms of deciding the priority of projects. And it's first and foremost, it's safety. So if there are wrecks and particularly fatalities that are taking place because of a road needs safety improvements, that moves it to the top of the list. They look at congestion, which is obviously a big issue for us in Williamson County. And then they look at economic development. So those are kind of the top 3 metrics. The importance of the Improve Act was if you take all of the, I don't know what it was, 15, 18 projects in Williamson County totaling well over $500 million, that the commitment with the Improve Act is that we would effectively be breaking ground on all of those projects within the next 10 to 12 years. I can't tell you now which projects will happen first, but I can tell you that those projects will all be under construction within the next 10 years. And they will be decided by those 3 important factors. But things do change. Businesses come in. The McEwen exit on I-65, that was never even on a 3-year plan. But when Nissan said they would come to town if we would build that exit, guess what? The exit got built. And so things do change and safety concerns change. But had we not passed the Improve Act, it would have taken probably 20 to 30 years for those projects to get done. So that hopefully puts it into a little perspective. That Mac Hatcher is certainly in that backlog list, and hopefully we'll see some movement on it soon.
Okay, Sam, what about Spring Hill?
Well, Spring Hill, well, I was going to say also on the key point that Senator Johnson's bringing up, those projects are part of the legislation. They will be done. I mean, it's just it's part of the law that we passed for the Improve Act. And I'd also like to add that with the Improve Act, the county and the cities will get a total of nearly $2 million extra from the gasoline tax and from the diesel tax over $700,000 extra each year. So that's going to help them with the county road projects in the city with across.
Right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kent Starwalt is in our audience today. Is that right? Kent,
Yeah.
why don't you step up to the podium just a minute and give us kind of a snapshot from the road builder's perspective. Kent's the, what's your title, Kent?
Executive Vice President.
Executive Vice President of the Tennessee Road Builders Association. So I'm sure the road builders have a, give me your top 3 highlights.
Excuse me, before he starts, I need him to do a disclosure on Matt Hatcher and where he lives.
I live in West Haven.
He's a constituent, okay?
So Mac Hatcher, I guess.
Well, first of all, Senator, at least he gave you 30 seconds to say something. I guess, obviously we're very grateful for the passage of the IMPROVE Act, and we appreciate the leadership this group gave on it. And, obviously, personally, Matt Hatcher on the northwest side is going to be very good getting that done. But even, just in looking at how Williamson Countyans move, again, the project that Chairman Sargent talked about, the Highway 31 project from Moore's Lane up to Concord is huge, again, as far as moving traffic. A lot of people are, they're taking it as an alternate to 65, primarily because it starts to get backed up at Concord Road, and so people can get on there. And so that's a vital part. And even in the evening rush coming back into Franklin, it's very crowded through there as well. The Spring Hill projects are critical with regard to, obviously, the population growth that's going on down there, and we should continue to address the transportation needs there. And this will be a surprise to many, and then even actually the 96. All the projects mentioned are critical to moving people in this county, and I guess this will be a surprising thing for the road builders to talk about. But the local option surcharge that was part of the act, which would allow the local communities to enact a tax to pay for transit, is obviously a very important part of this bill. As we look at moving people and goods around the state, primarily in our large urban areas. Right. As somebody who drives to downtown Nashville every day, we're going to have to do something to address that situation. It creates a unique problem for Williamson County because we have just about as many people drive into Williamson County from Davidson County as we have people going the other way. And so that creates a unique transportation challenge for all of us. But, we're pleased with the IMPROVE Act and what got passed, and think that, certainly our membership's ready to go to work all across the state as we address our congestion problems, safety, and everything we do will hopefully lead to more economic development for the state.
Are the road builders having trouble finding workers to do all these projects? The labor, the unskilled labor force and skilled labor force is clearly a challenge as we go forward. We believe we'll be able to address that. And one of the things we're doing is we have a program out there called Go Build Tennessee, which the legislature passed a couple years ago, which is trying to encourage younger people to get into the construction industry, and we try to drive them into training opportunities where they can we can get them trained to come into the industry, and that's construction industry, not just a road building industry. It's vertical as well. So yeah, but labor is an issue. We are concerned about it, but we think there's capacity at this point, certainly within the industry itself, to be able to get to address the needs that are out there with regard to projects that are coming. But yeah, labor is a huge issue for us. All right, appreciate your insights, Kent. And
Dave, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Let Kent finish up.
I'm good.
Okay. One other thing I'd like to talk about on the IMPROVE Act, especially on the House, was great debate, and I think it was unfairly painted as a tax increase. But if you really dive into the IMPROVE Act and what it entailed, it cut taxes on Tennesseans. It did raise the gasoline tax. So when you look at the average Tennessee family, of 4, 2 children, 2 adults, their gasoline bill will go up, on the average, $11 a month. But that same family will save $12 a month on the 1% cut on the sales tax on food. And that doesn't include the other things, other tax cuts like the Halls tax, and then as we talked about, the F&E tax. And so this, I argue forcefully, this was not a tax increase. Americans for Tax Reform said it was not a tax increase. And it's just a way that we wanted to allocate money to roads by using a user fee, by using gasoline as a way to pay for it. So you and I, as average Tennesseans, we will be paying, it is not a tax increase. Let me just say that, plain and simple.
Great. We just appreciate the additional help to deal with the congestion we face every day, and appreciate your all's leadership on this, and look forward to seeing some orange barrels out there around town. So, Charles, you know, we really hadn't talked hardly at all about the budget so far this year, and there are a lot of specifics that I know you were instrumental in making happen for Williamson County. And if you don't mind, get into the weeds with us a little bit about specifically what the budget contained that we should look forward to
Let me
seeing.
say one thing. Yes, I am fortunate to be chairman of the Finance, Ways and Means Committee, but without the two gentlemen to my right and the one to my left, this doesn't happen just by one person. So I want to thank, you know, I get a lot of things, you know, saying that I did this, I did that, but it doesn't happen because you still, no matter what we do, I still need 50 votes. So when I have the leader and I have the chairman of Commerce, and as a new member, Sam, like I've said it several times in the paper, Sam has been a great addition and has stepped in and really has learned. We were fortunate in Williams County this year that, you know, let me start on the Carter House and doing our new visitor centers. The governor put in $3.2 million to redo that. That is a major tourist attraction here in Williamson County and in Franklin. People come from all over the country to see that. So tourism dollars are coming here. They may also be staying in Davidson County, going to music, but they're coming here to see the Carter House. They're eating here. They're staying overnight here, buying gasoline here. So this all helps the economy as far as that's concerned. And then working with the gentleman, we also was able to, we talked earlier about Columbia State. Columbia State's growing. They went from 1,300 students to 1,800 students when they opened a new campus last year. As you know, parking is critical. They did not have enough parking spots. They were shuttling from a Franklin Park. Columbia was using a shuttle bus going back and forth, taking the children. We never thought it was going to be that successful. This year, I think we'll be over 2,000. We have money in the budget to start building a parking garage. Instead of the land's so valuable, so you don't want to take up all surface parking when we can go up and save a lot of the land out there. Sam was instrumental with the Masonic Lodge. We was able to, you know, there's a historic building that's probably one of the oldest three-story buildings in the South. And if we don't start doing something, and this again goes right back in tourism, so he's able to secure money for them.
Okay.
On that. We were fortunate, and I'll use Glenn and I. Jack's included in all this because he represents all of Williamson County. But Glenn and I were fortunate. We have certified senior citizen centers throughout the state, which there's only 7, and we're trying to get more senior citizens to be certified centers. There's probably only about 2% in the country that are certified. 2 of the certified centers are right here in Williamson County, the one in College Grove and the Martin Center in Brentwood. There's 7 in the state. We was able to get them a grant for $50,000, all 7, $50,000 apiece. So we was able to put $350,000 into a grant so we can get so they can see an incentive to be certified. So these are all just some of the, you know, the little things that we're able to do that
Right.
make everything work out for the state.
Right.
Because, like I said, on the certified centers, there's 2 here, there's 3 in Davidson County, and there's 2 in Upper East Tennessee. So it wasn't just Williamson County, it was, throughout the state situation.
Right.
And that's what we try to look at. We try to look at more at statewide projects and regional projects. You could say the Carter House is strictly a local project. It's really not. It's a regional project, a statewide project. When you do something on museums and things of that nature, it helps everyone throughout the state.
Right. Since you mentioned Columbia State, one of the governor's signature pieces, I think, this year was the free tuition, free college tuition for adults that want to go back to school.
Reconnect.
Jack, you want to?
Yeah, it was a big deal. I think Glenn mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I want to be clear about this. I actually heard some people bring this up, and somehow trying to tie this into the conversation about the Improve Act, and that is so completely misguided. Saying you're giving away free college tuition, but you want to raise our taxes, kind of thing. Let me clear that up for everybody. The Tennessee Promise, which we passed a couple of years ago, provided that all graduating seniors in Tennessee could attend a 2-year community college or technical institute tuition free. That money doesn't come from the general fund. It doesn't come from tax revenues. It comes from the lottery. It comes from the lottery surplus. And the Reconnect Act that we passed this year, which extends that to all adults who would like to go back and attend a community college or a technical institute, same thing. The revenue is coming from the lottery surplus. When the lottery was passed, and if you recall, we had to pass a constitutional amendment to get the lottery way back, years ago. When that constitutional amendment was passed, it was very specific as to what could be done with those lottery dollars. You can effectively provide scholarships to attend higher education. You can do pre-K and then certain capital outlay projects related to education. That's the only thing you can do with those lottery dollars. So with the lottery, since its implementation back in the 90s, I guess it wasn't back in the 90s, a long time ago, but we have been very, very conservative with those lottery dollars because we've looked at states like Georgia that went out and promised the moon to their, college kids attending college. They're in a deficit situation now. They're having to subsidize their lottery fund in order to meet the obligations they made to kids who are attending college. In Tennessee, we've done the exact opposite. We started the lottery. We've managed it very, very conservatively, and as a result, we have a large surplus in the lottery. So what we did with Tennessee Promise and what we've extended now with the Reconnect Act is we're taking some of those surplus lottery dollars and creating an endowment. We're not even using, correct me, I'll be wrong on some of this, but we're not even using the lottery dollars. We're just using the interest off of the lottery surplus to fund this. And again, we're very limited as to what we can do. So it ties into the governor's initiative to get more Tennesseans to get some type of higher education. Some people make the argument, well, if you give something away for free, there's no value in it. I understand that. But to attend even community college, having your tuition paid for it doesn't satisfy all the needs. You've still got housing, you've got to buy books, you've got other things. People who are taking advantage of either the Tennessee Promise as a graduating high school senior or as an adult who wants to go back and take advantage of this, you're going to have some skin in the game. But we have got to get more people in Tennessee, just as Glenn was saying, we've got to get more people with some type of post-high school graduate education, technical certificate, associate degree, 4-year degree, whatever the case might be. So again, I wanted to be clear about what we're doing. It had nothing to do, none of these dollars are coming from the general fund or your tax dollars. This is coming off of money that is earned from people who pay the lottery. Now, what did I mess up in that, Charles?
You did.
Perfect. Did I get that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sam's
Because this is
reaching
surplus
for the
money.
mic.
Yeah.
So,
Last month, I had the opportunity to present at a American government class over at Columbia State, and to put a face on it, what Senator Johnson was talking about, there was a student in there. He was about 35, 40 years old. He was dressed in his mechanic's overalls, name tag, covered with diesel oil and grease, and he was there sitting on the front row, and he wanted to go back to school to get an associate degree to show his kids that this is what you have to do to succeed in life. He put a face on why we need to do this Reconnect Act, and the guy really impressed me. The teacher told me he's been to every class that he could get time off from work for. He's paying his way, but this is the kind of Tennessean we need to help to succeed in the future.
Let me say something, because I think something we all did this year that was very important with our first responders. As you know, last year we had a TBI agent, the first TBI agent that ever got killed in the line of duty. And what happened, they had a $25,000 policy. And on this particular situation, it happens with our highway patrol, a number of first responders out there, firefighters and everything else. And what we did this year, I think really for our first responders, now if they get killed in the line of duty, that they get a $250,000 policy, which comes out to be, they get $50,000, their spouse would get $50,000 a year for 5 years. It's like a life insurance policy, but instead of paying it all out at once, they're getting payments, 5 payments of $50,000. Right. Plus the fact that on our first responders here in Williamson County, we are fortunate because Roger Zanson, the county mayor, and the county commissioners do a fabulous job. They didn't get kicked off the insurance. But on the state and a lot of these places, if they were to die on the 15th, May the 15th, May the 30th, they're off the insurance. Yep. And so the wife, the spouse is out there, and children are out there with no insurance. We turned around, and everyone's guaranteed that they stay under the group policy for at least 2 years. So, this is one less thing the spouse has to don't have to worry about for at least 2 years. They're staying under the health insurance they were, and this is all we're picking all those expenses up, because we got first responders out there. The situation we're under today is very sad. That what's happened to some of our police officers and everything else. They're almost being targeted. So that's something that I think you don't hear a lot about. But you can imagine for that family, that spouse and those children, how comforting it is to know for 2 years they're going to be on health care. And they don't have to worry, if you died the 15th, you bury your spouse 5-6 days later, then the 30th of May, right, you're off insurance. This is one less stress factor that's taken off their back. And I think we're all very proud of being able to do that for our first responders. Because that's something that most people don't even think about.
Right. Let's switch gears here for just a short time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But Jack, you touched a little bit on this a while ago when you were talking about the housing design bill. And we seem to, and I'm coming at this from the business community's perspective, but we seem to occasionally, we fuss about the mandates that we get from the federal government that tell us how to run our state without funding them. The education, I didn't think I'd ever forget the name of the testing that everybody... Common Core, yeah. We hate that sort of stuff coming down from the federal government. But yet from time to time things pop up here at the state level to tell the local governments how to do things. The housing design bill being a classic example of that. So help us understand why the state should get involved in the local things like the housing design when we fuss so much about the federal government telling the state how to do it.
I'd be glad to jump in. I think there's a misunderstanding of the Constitution. We've got to understand that the states created the federal government. And so the founders of our country intended for the states to be the dominant voice in our U.S. government. And The states, because of grants and whatnot, we've seceded all that authority back to the federal government. And that's why we're in the trouble that we're in. Now, the founders intended for the states to be the foundation of government and to dictate to the federal government on what they can and cannot do, and it's reversed, and we've got problems. Consequently, it is the reverse on a local level. The state constitution, the state of Tennessee created cities and counties, and we gave them very limited power. And so some of our cities, chafing under conservative leadership, low taxes, small government, are trying to become self-determinate. They're trying to become their own entity independent of state government by passing laws that they don't have the constitutional authority to do. And so it's a debate, has been from the beginning of the country, on how things are run. And so we in Tennessee, as a majority, feel like the states are the dominant voice in federal matters, and the federal government should be very limited on what they dictate to us. But the opposite is true on a local government level. We don't want cities to become their own little fiefdoms. We want a uniform way of doing business across the state from Memphis to Mountain City. It makes it better to do business, and it makes it more successful. So that's the debate that we have every day in Nashville and in Washington, D.C. for that matter. So.
Right.
And I'll add to that too. You know, there is absolutely a place for local government, and states. We'll go back to the design elements bill.
Right.
Long ago, back in the 20s and the 30s, the state decided that it should be up to local governments how to determine land use and zoning. And so the state granted authority for land use and zoning to local governments. And that was a smart decision because, you know, governing Perry County is going to be different than Williamson County. And so any authority that a local government has, it has because the state gave it to them, okay, in the Tennessee Code annotated. And rightfully so, because the local governments, I don't want the state deciding, you know, if someone can put a garage on the front of their house in my neighborhood. That should be a local government decision. And let me say something else here too, and I should have brought the certificate. We should have maybe made a presentation. Williamson County was one of a handful of counties in the state that received a perfect audit from the comptroller of the state of Tennessee, a perfect audit. And so congratulations. But that brings up another point. You have communities like Franklin, Brentwood, Spring Hill, Nolensville, Thompson Station, in Williamson County, and Williamson County itself that do such a great job of managing their affairs. But that's not the case in every other city and county in the state. And if a city defaults, if a city goes bankrupt, guess who's going to absorb that? It's going to be the state in all likelihood. And that's why cities and counties are accountable to the state with regards to their fiscal matters and their fiscal solvency. And that's why the comptroller goes around and audits all the cities and counties and school districts and everything else. That's the state holding those cities and counties accountable. Because if they were to fail, that's going to fall on the taxpayers of the state of Tennessee. So I say that congratulating Williamson County on their perfect audit. And all of our cities in Williamson County do an outstanding job, but you can't say that necessarily about, and it's not necessarily the fault of those in governance. In those, it could be economic factors, it could be know a number of things, but it's an important relationship, and this debate about state and local governments has been taking place for many years, and it will continue.
I just thought we'd get into a little philosophy here.
And it's good. It's an important conversation to have.
Sam, Charles, y'all have anything to add to that?
I would just add, as Senator Johnson said, Williamson County, out of the 95 counties, 12 counties had a perfect audit, and Williamson County was the largest of all those counties to receive a perfect audit. So that says a lot about the community that we live in. I'm very proud to be here.
One more subject before we open it up to questions from our audience here, and that's where did we end up on Airbnb? What was the final determination on short-term rentals?
It basically has been put off for a year.
Okay, so nothing.
The last bill, the last thing that was on the floor was strictly to do with Davidson County. They excluded everyone in the state except for Davidson County. As you know, Davidson County, Metro Nashville is trying to work on ordinance now, and so it will come back up next year. But at this point in time, basically, we did nothing on that bill,
Okay, gotcha.
just to make it short and sweet.
Yeah. So local governments still have full authority with regards to how to handle short-term rentals.
Good.
But it's going to be a continuing conversation.
Local chambers and local governments like that, so we like the local authority. So yeah, our audience looks bright-eyed and bushy-tailed out there this morning. If you've got a question you would like to ask or a comment you'd like to make, Bev, come up and identify yourself and
Morning,
ask your
gentlemen.
question.
Thank
Morning.
you. I'm Alderman Bev Berger, Ward 1, City of Franklin. And wow, you guys had a great session this time. Did a lot of work. Thank you, and thank you, Sam. Really appreciate you being there. Jack, you are so right that land use, zoning, those particular things are given to the government, by the government to the city. I just want to make a few comments. I'm going to have a question for you. We do not want the state deciding some of these issues, like where we place our garage. We don't want them deciding on our materials. Franklin has been extremely responsible in making sure we as a government provide the health, safety, and welfare for our citizens. And along with that is the safety and the health of our finances for our people in our city. And so we make sure that materials, when they're used in our homes, there's a reason we don't do aluminum siding. There's a reason we don't do certain sidings, because we want a sustainable community. And the example I can give you, when you get up there in the legislature and some of your colleagues come in with these bills because their community is not doing it right, but yet we are, or we try our best to do it right. It's like this teacher that walks in the room and sees Billy and Johnny going at it, and so she said, okay, you're going to write your spelling words 100 times. And by the way, all of you people get to write too. I was doing my work, Miss Smith. I was studying, Miss Smith. I wasn't talking, Miss Smith. I don't care. You're all guilty. You're all going to come under the penalty. And so that's how I look at when the state legislature does these things to us. And the materials bill, to me, is a great example of that. And then the annexation laws, I will go on record today and ask you to please start to get that changed at the state legislature. The annexation laws that were given to us are detrimental to our community. They are going to hurt the health, safety, and welfare of our community. Because right now, because we have done, I believe, the way it's to be. We hold public meetings. We've had people who've come in and said, no, we don't want to be annexed. We had over 51%, 55% of those people say no. We've usually not annexed them. But if there is a good enough reason that would be detrimental to the city and the county not to annex the people in, then we really have to consider that. So right now, let me give you one example, and I'd like for you to speak to it. An example is a certain part of our town, in the urban growth boundary, we have a city part, and then, of course, county, and you go out about a mile, and then there's about 400 or 500 acres that somebody wants to annex in. And according to the new laws, they can come to us and ask to be annexed in. So now what do? We have to look at plan of services and everything. So do we say no after 30 years of these people having this land and wanting to sell it, that no, you can't sell it and you cannot annex it in and you cannot be a part of the city because the state has tied our hands? And so now we have to hopscotch over, create donut holes and create gaps. So we have sewer, we have police, we have fire, we have solid waste picked up, and we have to go from city to county to city now to jump over, and the health issue will be sewer. We don't want 500 homes going in with septics. So then they have to do alternative systems. So I wanted to share that with you because we don't get a chance to talk so much on that, and share it with the audience as well. Can you speak to what you believe about the annexation bill that has been detrimental to us. Thank you.
I'm going to try to tackle that. I think I know the property you're speaking about. But there again, we gave local the option. We gave local the option. If they do not want to do that, if they do not want to bring sewer out there, you don't have to. You don't have to skip any property or anything else. That's Franklin City option. That's what we did to Franklin City. We gave them the option. If you don't want to do it, if the city doesn't want to do it, there's not a problem. That's what you asked for. You want local options, and that's what we gave you on that situation.
On the exterior materials bill, too, let me say, the three of us took the lead on that. We met with the sponsor, and we asked him as a favor not to run that bill. And so he didn't. He pulled it back, took it back to committee, and we're going to address it in committee and make it something that's palatable. Because Jack was really articulate when it comes to land use, planning, zoning. That is a local government. The state has given that to locals. You all do it much better, and we sure don't want to get involved in that. And so, it's good. It's good.
Okay. And very quickly on the annexation, annexation by ordinance, which was Public Chapter 1101, that was passed back in the 90s, that was going away. Okay, and it worked very well. Public Chapter 1101 worked very well in Williamson County. As I tell people, I've said it in this forum before, I've never had a single complaint in my time in the Senate about annexation processes in Williamson County. The cities of Brentwood, Franklin, Spring Hill, Nolensville, all the cities, they've done it right. That's not the case, though, in other parts of the state. Williamson County is one of 95 counties, and there was enough abuse of 1101 that it was going to get thrown out, which means you can no longer annex by ordinance. And so you were going to go to some type of referendum type system. So what our job is on behalf of you in this community is to read those tea leaves. And the number one desire in this county would have been to preserve Public Chapter 1101, okay? That wasn't going to happen. And we can't, it's constitutionally unacceptable to say, well, we'll keep doing that in Williamson County. So you're going to have a statewide policy that is going to change. And so when we see that that's going to change, our job is to work with our local governments, which we have done, to try to manage that as best we can to mitigate the detrimental impacts on our community as best we can. And that's what we did. And it's not perfect, and we'll continue to try to work with our local folks to make it better. But the non-contiguous annexation component, Bev, that you talked about, it's a great point about having to hopscotch. But the city of Franklin asked for that. They asked us to give them annexation or non-continuous annexation as part of this overall reform. And we did that, and it doesn't work very well. So we will continue to work with you to try to improve it and make it better.
Plus the fact, let me say one thing, that we think every county, we got 95 counties, there's only 38 or 39 counties that have planning and zoning in the state. The other counties have no planning, no zoning whatsoever. So you can put a trailer up next to a $5 million house, or you can put a piece of commercial business in a trailer next to a nice house. They have, we have 60 counties, 60-something counties that have no planning and zoning whatsoever. And I think you can see that when you go to some of these rural areas, that you're saying, how did they ever get away with doing that? They don't have any planning and zoning. We just think every county has it. They don't.
Gentlemen, Gary got time for one real short question. Sir.
Okay, real quick. Briefly explain what the camera bill that has been passed does, because I know the law enforcement, including Chief Deb Faulkner, are very concerned about privacy. Thank you.
This is Gary Buchanan, by the way.
Oh, excuse me.
I know Gary, he sits on the back row with us at church.
Sit on the back row.
That's right. Yes, what Gary is talking about is House Bill 732 that we passed, and it was passed in the Senate. And it requires, it's an expectation of privacy for our citizens. And so when the police respond to a private residence where there's no crime being committed, for instance, let's say an alarm goes off, and we have a lot of celebrities live in our counties, and if people find out that the police responded to one of these homes, they can do a request for open records and view that video footage inside the home. So we prohibited that. We prohibited release of videos inside public schools, K through 12, and also in healthcare facilities, psychiatric hospitals, regular healthcare facilities, and such. So what that does, it gives our citizens expectation of privacy, but also gives the police guidance in this emerging technology that's coming about. So I think as we move on down the road with this, we will also be introducing other legislation in regards to body cameras, when you turn them on, when you turn them off, what can be released, when can it be released, and also we have to deal with the criminal law component on this too. So that's what House Bill 732 does.
And that bill was brought to us, Gary, by the Police Chiefs Association. Of course, Chief Faulkner is very involved with them, and I carried it in the Senate. Sam did most of the hard work on it and got it worked out, and then I passed on the Senate side. But the bottom line is more and more police officers are using cameras. So the question is, ordinarily that becomes subject to public records request. And so if a police officer came to your home just for, it wasn't a crime scene or anything, but someone found out that they had been inside your home with that camera on, do we want the press or any just Joe average citizen to be able to go and subpoena that and get that camera footage that was taken inside your home? No, they shouldn't be able to do that. Or if it involves a child who did nothing wrong. So we're setting up some limitations. The Press Association and the Open Records Advocates, they fight this kind of stuff because they want everything to be available. And so we're finding that balance between what should be available to the public when it's a legitimate crime scene and what should be kept private. It's good legislation.
It's been a good session. I thought I was going to have to get you to explain the definition of natural and ordinary, but we're out of time. So, we really appreciate y'all being with us the last. This is the 5th month this year, and traditionally that's when we wrap up our state legislative roundtables and move on to the local municipalities. But really appreciate the time y'all have taken to be with us. It helps us understand a lot about what's going on behind the scenes and how these things get done and why they get done. And y'all have been excellent representatives for Williamson County. Charles?
I know I want to thank Vanderbilt University. I know they're one of the sponsors for giving us the little pads this morning, so I'll do a shout out to Vanderbilt University.
Absolutely.
It's not quite as good as Columbia State, but it's getting there.
We appreciate Lynn and Christine supporting this program so well through the Vanderbilt Office of Community Development or something like that, and we very much appreciate their support. Appreciate WCTV, our local cable TV affiliate that makes this happen every month. Creed Henderson and Heather, y'all do a great job, and we appreciate that. Diane, pass our appreciation back to Mayor Rogers Anderson for the facility use, and should mention Tom Lawrence and WAKM for getting it on the air simulcast with a little help from Aspen Grove Asset Management. So we appreciate all the supporters of this program. Next month, hadn't been confirmed yet, but Diane, if you could help me arrange to have the mayor here, we would like to get an update on some of the county goings on. And we'll also have someone from the Dyer Observatory here to talk about an upcoming eclipse and how to observe that. So hope you'll be with us. That's June 30th. Look forward to having you back with us next month. Thank you.
Thank you.